The text message glowed on Liam's screen at 2:17 a.m. "Just married my coworker in Vegas. You're pathetic, BTW." Ava's words sat there, clinical and cruel, demolishing 6 years of marriage in 17 syllables. Liam read it 3 times. His hands didn't shake. His breath remained steady. Something deep inside had been preparing for this moment, perhaps since he'd first noticed Ava's password changes and weekend conferences with accounting. He typed a single word: cool. Then he set his phone down, opened his laptop, and began the process of saving what could be saved. The strange clarity flooding his mind felt nothing like heartbreak. It felt like finally seeing the truth after years of squinting at shadows. Liam Andrews set 2 mugs of coffee on the kitchen island as morning light filtered through the blinds. 6 years of marriage had established a comfortable rhythm, his mug on the left with a splash of cream, Ava's on the right, black with 1 sugar. "Coffee's ready?" he called toward the bathroom, his voice warm but receiving no response beyond the continued hum of a hairdryer. He opened his laptop at the kitchen counter, scanning the day's schedule while taking methodical sips from his mug. The steam curled upward as he reviewed client appointments, his fingers moving with practiced precision over the keyboard. Ava emerged 15 minutes later, heels clicking sharply against the hardwood. "Running late," she announced, grabbing her mug without meeting his eyes. "The Anderson account is being difficult." "I made you toast," Liam gestured to the plate by the microwave. "Not hungry." She took a quick sip of coffee. "Gary wants the whole team in early for strategy planning." Liam nodded, registering the 3rd mention of Gary, her department's newest manager, this week. "I could make dinner tonight. That pasta you liked last month? Don't wait up." She gathered her purse and phone. Probably another late one. As the front door clicked shut, Liam remained at the counter, fingers paused over his keyboard. The kitchen felt suddenly larger, the silence more pronounced than it should have been. He glanced at the untouched toast, then at the empty space where his wife had stood. Something about the distance between these 2 points felt significant, though he couldn't quite articulate why. "Andrews, you're a lifesaver." Ellen Marshall set a stack of financial projections on Liam's desk. The Richardson audit would have been a disaster without these calculations. Liam smiled, gesturing to the chair opposite his desk. The discrepancy was in their inventory valuation. Once I cross-referenced their purchasing records, the pattern emerged. "That's why everyone comes to you with the puzzles." Ellen sat down, her expression appreciative. "You see what others miss." The corner office where Liam worked as a senior financial analyst reflected his methodical nature. Files arranged by priority, digital and physical calendars synchronized, awards discreetly displayed along the back wall. A photo of Ava from their 3rd anniversary stood beside his monitor, her smile wider than he'd seen recently. "Roberts wants you at the quarterly forecast meeting," Ellen continued. "Said your risk assessment model should be the foundation going forward." "I'll prepare a presentation," Liam replied, already organizing the approach in his mind. "Did you need anything else for Richardson?" "That's it. Some of us are grabbing lunch if you want to join." "Thanks, but I should finish this model." His fingers were already returning to the keyboard, where numbers and projections offered a reassuring predictability. After Ellen left, Liam's phone buzzed with a text notification. Ava's name appeared on the screen. His hand hovered momentarily before picking it up, an instinctive hesitation he hadn't noticed developing. "Working late again. Don't cook for me." The brevity wasn't unusual lately. He typed a simple acknowledgement, then set the phone down, his attention returning to the columns of figures where things either balanced or didn't. No ambiguity, no reading between lines. That evening, while organizing files in the home office, Liam discovered a credit card statement he didn't recognize. The Platinum card had been opened 3 months earlier, with Ava as the primary holder and charges approaching $8,000. Weekend stays at hotels he'd never heard of, restaurants where they'd never dined together, a receipt for 2 airline tickets to Las Vegas, dated for the following week. He carefully replaced the statement exactly as he'd found it, his movements deliberate and silent. A quick check of their joint accounts showed transfers. 3 substantial withdrawals moved to an account he didn't recognize. Just researching vacation options, Ava had answered 2 nights earlier when he'd noticed her closing browser tabs as he entered the room. Thought we might need a getaway soon. Now, sitting at his desk, Liam connected fragments that had seemed insignificant in isolation. The changed passwords on her laptop, the new phone with enhanced security settings, the growing collection of weekends where the Anderson account needed attention. He opened a secure folder on his personal laptop and began documenting dates, amounts, and patterns. Not from anger, but from the same meticulous attention to detail that had made him valuable at work. The entries formed a timeline of increasing distance and deliberate separation. When Ava returned after 11 p.m., her perfume was different, sharper, more expensive than her usual scent. "Gary finally approved my strategy for the Anderson presentation," she offered without prompting, dropping her purse on the counter. "The Vegas conference will be the perfect place to showcase it." "That's good," Liam responded neutrally. "When do you leave?" "Friday morning. Just a quick weekend trip." Her eyes never quite met his. "Team building, mostly." He nodded, watching her check her phone with unusual frequency. When she disappeared into the bathroom, he updated his documentation with tonight's conversation, noting the discrepancy between the single hotel reservation in her name and the 2 airline tickets purchased. At midnight, as they prepared for bed in silent parallel routines, Liam's phone emitted a notification sound. The device sat on his nightstand, screen illuminated with an incoming message. Liam reached for his phone, the notification glow illuminating his face in the darkened bedroom. Ava was asleep, or pretending to be, her back turned to his side of the bed. He expected a work email, perhaps the quarterly projections he'd been waiting for. Instead, a text message from Ava's number appeared on the screen. "Just married my coworker in Vegas. You're pathetic, BTW." Time seemed to stop. His breath caught, then released in a controlled measure as his eyes read the words again, then a third time. The message's blunt cruelty left no room for misinterpretation. "Not leaving you for my coworker or want a divorce, but married, past tense, accomplished," and the casual addition of pathetic, like an afterthought, a final twist of the knife. The room around him seemed to recede, his awareness narrowing to the glowing screen in his hand. His pulse remained steady, surprising him. Somewhere deep in his consciousness, a voice noted that he should be falling apart. Instead, he felt a strange clarity cutting through the initial shock. The betrayal was absolute, yet somehow not unexpected. The evidence he'd been documenting, the hotel charges, the Vegas tickets, they assembled into a coherent picture. What he hadn't anticipated was the deliberate cruelty, the calculated public humiliation. Sending such a text, rather than having a conversation, meant she wanted him wounded, wanted witnesses to his pain. His fingers didn't shake as they held the phone. The numbness he felt wasn't denial, but something else, a protective mechanism activating, like a circuit breaker preventing system overload. All the years of managing complex financial risks had prepared him for this personal catastrophe in ways he hadn't realized. Several possible responses flashed through Liam's mind as he stared at the message. He could beg, plead for explanation, for reconsideration. He could attack, match cruelty with cruelty, list her failings, threaten revenge. He could break down, let her witness his devastation through desperate texts and calls. Each option yielded the same result, giving her exactly what she wanted. His pain as her entertainment. A strange calm settled over him. The initial shock was transforming into something cooler, more focused. The analytical part of his mind, the part that found patterns in financial chaos and predicted market movements, was taking control. If she wants destruction, he thought, she'll be disappointed. He typed a single word, cool. Then he set the phone down on the nightstand, screen facing down. No follow-up, no questions, no visible reaction. The message was delivered with a soft confirmation tone that seemed impossibly inadequate for the moment. The room felt different now, transformed by knowledge. Their bedroom, with its carefully chosen furnishings and framed vacation photos, now seemed like a museum exhibit of something that had never truly existed. Her breathing from the other side of the bed, the performance of sleep, now struck him as absurd rather than painful. He sat motionless for several minutes, letting the reality settle. This was not just betrayal, but calculated humiliation. Not just the end of his marriage, but an attempted assassination of his dignity. The clarity of this understanding brought with it an unexpected sense of power. He would not give her the satisfaction of witnessing his pain. He would not become the pathetic creature she had declared him to be. Instead, he would respond with something she clearly didn't expect from him: strategic thinking, decisive action, and absolute composure. His mind began mapping the necessary steps with the same methodical precision he applied to complex audits: the prenuptial agreement, the documented evidence, the joint accounts, the house deed. Each element became a node in a protection framework that was already forming with surprising clarity. Liam moved silently to the home office, closing the door with practiced care. The digital clock showed 2:43 a.m. as he opened his laptop and entered the complex password that Ava had never bothered to learn or remember. He accessed their joint accounts first, checking, savings, investment portfolio, and initiated the security protocols he'd established years ago but never expected to use. Each account required different steps: transfer limits, dual authorization requirements, temporary freezes. His fingers moved with practiced efficiency, the familiar rhythm of financial protection now applied to his personal life. He dialed the 24-hour service line for their bank, speaking in low, measured tones. "This is Liam Andrews, account ending in 4729. I need to implement the emergency security protocol we discussed last year." He provided his verification information, then continued, "Yes, exactly. Temporary freeze on all joint accounts pending legal review. My individual accounts should remain accessible." The representative's voice was professionally sympathetic. "I've implemented the security hold, Mr. Andrews. All joint accounts are now frozen for outgoing transactions. Is there anything else we can assist with tonight? Please note that any attempt to override these measures should trigger an immediate notification to both myself and your fraud department. This is a documented marital dissolution situation." "Understood and noted, Mr. Andrews. The security flags are in place." After ending the call, Liam opened his evidence folder, methodically updating it with screenshots of the text message and time-stamped account protection measures. He added notes about Ava's recent behavior patterns, connecting them to the financial documentation he'd been gathering. He sent a brief email to his attorney, requesting an urgent meeting in the morning, attaching key documents that would require immediate attention. The prenuptial agreement, which Ava had signed with dismissive confidence years ago, would now become the foundation of a protection framework she hadn't anticipated. As the first hint of dawn appeared through the office window, Liam completed his initial security measures. The text message that was meant to destroy him had instead activated a system of self-protection that would preserve what mattered, not the marriage, that was clearly beyond salvation, but his dignity, financial stability, and future autonomy. He closed the laptop, a sense of focused purpose replacing the initial shock. The first moves had been made, with many more to follow. This was not the end she had planned for him, but the beginning of something she had never expected: his refusal to be victimized. "The prenuptial agreement is remarkably thorough," Catherine Winters observed, her experienced eyes scanning the document spread across her polished desk. Morning light streamed through the law office windows, highlighting the silver in her short, practical haircut. "You were forward-thinking to include these infidelity and abandonment clauses." Liam sat across from her, his posture composed, despite having not slept. He'd arrived at the attorney's office when they opened at 8 a.m., less than 6 hours after receiving Ava's text. "I have documentation as well," he said, sliding a USB drive across the desk. "Financial records, credit card statements, text messages, including last night's. I've maintained a chronological file for the past 3 months. Catherine's eyebrows rose slightly as she plugged in the drive. "Most clients come to me in emotional disarray with scattered evidence at best. This is exceptionally organized. I'm a financial analyst. Documentation is second nature." As Catherine reviewed the evidence, Liam's gaze drifted momentarily to a family photo on her bookshelf. His own carefully framed wedding photo flashed in his mind, now a monument to something that had never truly existed. "Legally, you're in a strong position," Catherine said, interrupting his thoughts. "The Vegas marriage constitutes both adultery and abandonment under your prenup terms. Her text message is particularly damaging: explicit admission of infidelity with deliberate cruelty." "What should I expect next?" Liam's voice remained steady. "Once she realizes her financial access is restricted, there will likely be escalation, possibly false accusations. It's unfortunately common." Catherine's tone turned practical. "You've already secured the accounts. We should immediately file for legal separation to formalize those protections." Liam nodded. "I'd like to proceed with whatever provides maximum security." "I'll prepare the paperwork immediately," Catherine said, making notes. "And Liam," she paused, her professional demeanor softening momentarily, "your composure is admirable, but don't neglect the emotional impact. This type of betrayal takes a toll, even when you're handling it well." A brief flicker of vulnerability crossed his face before his composed expression returned. "I'll process that part later. Right now, I need to ensure she can't do further damage." "We've implemented the complete security protocol, Mr. Andrews." Marcus Chen, the private banking advisor, spoke with professional efficiency as they sat in his office. "All joint accounts now require dual authorization for any withdrawal over $100. Your personal accounts remain fully accessible, while Mrs. Andrews' separate accounts are unaffected." Liam nodded, reviewing the documentation. "What about the mortgage and utilities?" "As we discussed, those payments will continue automatically from your personal account rather than the joint household account. We've also flagged the credit monitoring system to alert you to any new applications or unusual activity." The bank's security measures were reassuringly thorough, financial walls being erected around the life Liam had built. As Marcus walked him through each protection element, Liam's phone began vibrating repeatedly in his pocket. "One moment," he said, glancing at the screen. 6 missed calls from Ava in the past 20 minutes. As he watched, a text message appeared. "WTF? Did you do to our accounts? Fix this now." He set the phone face down on the table and returned his attention to Marcus. "Please continue." They completed the financial security implementation with methodical precision. Each account secured, each asset protected. The process brought a sense of ordered control that steadied him, even as his phone continued to vibrate with increasing frequency. As they concluded, Marcus hesitated. "Mr. Andrews, we occasionally see situations like this escalate beyond financial matters. Have you considered personal security measures?" "I'm addressing those aspects as well," Liam replied, his tone revealing nothing of the emotions beneath. When he checked his phone after leaving the bank, the messages had progressed from demanding to threatening. "You think you're so smart. Gary knows people who will make you regret this. Last chance to fix the accounts before I tell everyone what you really did." The threats were as revealing as they were desperate. Each message became another document in his evidence file, another brick in the protective wall between his future and the destruction Ava had planned. Back in his home office, Liam methodically organized the growing evidence collection. Financial records occupied one folder, categorized by date and type of misconduct. Text messages and emails filled another, including screenshots of Ava's escalating threats throughout the day. Legal documents, the prenuptial agreement, marriage certificate, property deeds, formed a third category. His phone continued to buzz with incoming messages, each more hostile than the last. "You're going to be sorry when I tell the police what you've done to me. Gary says we should take everything you have. You deserve nothing. I'm coming to get what's mine. You better not be there." Liam added each message to the evidence file without responding. The silence was clearly infuriating her, judging by the increasing frequency and hostility of her communications. He created a comprehensive timeline document correlating her infidelity evidence with financial misconduct. The pattern was striking. Each escalation in her relationship with Gary corresponded with larger, unauthorized financial movements. The prenuptial agreement violations were numerous and unambiguous. As evening approached, he secured digital copies of all documentation in encrypted cloud storage and provided access to Catherine. Physical copies were organized in a locked briefcase. The quiet, methodical work provided a strange comfort, transforming chaos into order, betrayal into evidence. His phone buzzed again at 6:17 p.m., but this time it wasn't a text from Ava. It was an automated security alert from the smart doorbell system. Motion detected. Front entrance. He activated the security camera feed on his laptop. 2 police officers stood at his front door, one male and one female. Their expressions were professionally neutral, but their posture suggested they weren't making a courtesy call. The doorbell rang, its sound echoing through the empty house. Liam took a deep breath, straightened his shirt, and moved toward the front door with the calm of someone who had been expecting this moment, another step in a sequence he had already mapped out in his mind. Liam opened the front door to find 2 officers standing on his threshold, their expressions professionally neutral. The female officer stood slightly forward, her hand resting near her belt. "Mr. Andrews?" she asked, her voice carrying the practiced calm of someone who had handled countless domestic disputes. "Yes, that's me." Liam kept his own voice steady, though his pulse had quickened. "How can I help you?" "I'm Officer Morales. This is Officer Chen. We're responding to a domestic complaint. May we come in?" Liam stepped back, gesturing them inside while maintaining a respectful distance. The officers entered with practiced vigilance, their eyes scanning the orderly living room. "Mr. Andrews, we've received a report from your wife alleging domestic abuse and financial coercion," Officer Morales continued, watching his reaction carefully. "She claims you've illegally restricted her access to marital funds and have engaged in a pattern of controlling behavior." The accusation landed like a physical blow, though Liam had half expected this move after Ava's threatening texts. The male officer, Chen, maintained a position slightly behind his partner, his posture subtly suggesting Liam was considered potentially dangerous. "I understand," Liam replied, keeping his hands visible. "Those allegations are false. I have documentation that shows the opposite is true." Officer Morales's expression remained impassive. "Your wife has provided quite detailed allegations, sir. She claims you've been financially abusive throughout your marriage and that you're now retaliating against her." Liam noted the presumption of guilt in their stance, the careful positioning between him and potential exits. The power dynamic was deliberately unbalanced, standard procedure perhaps, but no less intimidating. "I can explain everything with evidence," Liam said, maintaining eye contact with Officer Morales. "Would you like to see the documentation?" A slight flicker of surprise crossed her face. "What sort of documentation?" "Financial records, text messages, including one from last night where she announced she married someone else in Vegas, and our prenuptial agreement that legally justifies the account protections I've implemented." The officers exchanged a quick glance that Liam didn't miss. "We'd like to see that evidence, sir," Officer Chen said, speaking for the first time. Liam led the officers to his home office, where his evidence was already organized in both digital and physical formats. The atmosphere remained tense, though the officers' postures had subtly shifted from confrontational to observational. "This is a screenshot of the text message I received at 2:17 a.m., Liam began, bringing up the image on his laptop screen. "As you can see, my wife informed me she had married her coworker in Las Vegas and added an insult." Officer Morales leaned closer to read the message, her eyebrows rising slightly at the explicit text. "And your response?" "One word: cool. I chose not to engage with the hostility." He moved methodically through the evidence, showing them the prenuptial agreement with highlighted infidelity clauses, the timeline of unusual financial activity, and the hotel charges for Vegas accommodations. "These are screenshots of the threatening messages she sent after I implemented the account protections that are explicitly permitted by our prenup in cases of infidelity." He displayed the sequence of increasingly hostile texts. Officer Chen was now taking notes. "You mentioned you have financial records?" "Yes." Liam opened another folder, displaying credit card statements showing hotel charges in locations Ava had never mentioned visiting, restaurant bills for two during times she claimed to be working late, and the unauthorized transfers from their joint accounts. As the evidence accumulated, the officer's demeanor shifted noticeably. Their questions became more focused on verifying details rather than challenging his account. "The prenuptial agreement appears legally executed," Officer Morales noted, examining the document, "and you've documented all this methodically." "I'm a financial analyst. Documentation is part of my professional training," Liam explained, his voice remaining calm despite the vindication beginning to emerge. He showed them the final piece, the airline confirmation for 2 tickets to Vegas in Ava's name and her coworker Gary's, purchased with their joint credit card. She left yesterday morning, texted me about the marriage last night, and has been demanding I reverse the account protections today, he summarized, closing the laptop. The officers exchanged glances again, this time with clear reassessment in their eyes. "Mr. Andrews," Officer Morales said, her tone now professional rather than suspicious. "This evidence significantly contradicts the allegations we received. We'll need to follow up with your wife regarding these discrepancies," Officer Chen said, his stance now relaxed, note-taking completed. "False reports are a serious matter." Liam nodded, experiencing a quiet relief that he kept carefully contained. "I understand. I'm not interested in escalating the situation, just protecting myself from false accusations and financial damage." "Your preparation was thorough," Officer Morales observed. "Most people aren't this organized when we respond to domestic calls." "I suspected something might happen when she began threatening me via text," Liam replied. "I wanted to be prepared." Officer Chen cleared his throat. "We should inform you that we received information suggesting your wife may be returning here tonight. Her call came from the Vegas airport approximately 40 minutes ago." The news wasn't unexpected, but it still sent a subtle tension through Liam's shoulders. "I see. Based on the evidence you've shown us, we're concerned about the potential for confrontation," Officer Morales added. Her texts contain concerning language that could indicate escalation. "I've already spoken with my attorney about obtaining a temporary restraining order," Liam said, "but it won't be processed until tomorrow." The officers exchanged another glance before Officer Chen spoke. "Given the circumstances, we'd recommend you consider staying elsewhere tonight. If that's not possible, we can increase patrols in this area." "I appreciate that," Liam replied, "but I prefer not to be driven from my home. I have security cameras and a monitored alarm system." Officer Morales nodded, handing him a card. "If she arrives and you feel threatened, call 911 immediately. Reference this case number so responding officers will have context." As they moved toward the front door, Officer Chen added, "We've documented everything you've shown us. It will be in our report if further action becomes necessary." They departed with professional nods, leaving Liam standing in the doorway, watching their patrol car pull away. The vindication he felt was tempered by the knowledge that the immediate threat had merely transformed rather than disappeared. His phone chimed with a notification from his flight tracking app. Flight DL4428 from Las Vegas landed. Liam closed the door, locked it, and began preparing for Ava's return. The confrontation that had been building since that devastating text message was now imminent. But unlike the police encounter, this was one he'd been strategically planning for since 2:17 a.m. Liam activated the home's exterior security cameras, monitoring the feeds on his tablet as he moved through each room with deliberate purpose. The estimated arrival time from the airport was approximately 40 minutes, enough to implement the non-confrontational strategy he had developed. He called Catherine Winters, his attorney, who answered despite the late hour. "The police have been here," he explained, adjusting the exterior motion sensors. "Ava filed false abuse allegations, but the evidence countered her claims." "Not surprising," Catherine replied. "What's your status now?" "Officers informed me she's en route from the airport. I'm implementing boundary measures." "Physical confrontation would only complicate matters legally," Catherine cautioned. "Are you considering alternative accommodation tonight?" "No," Liam said firmly. "I won't be displaced from my home, but I'm preparing to avoid direct engagement." He explained his strategy while adjusting the home automation system from his tablet. The lawn irrigation system was now programmed to activate by remote control rather than its usual schedule. "It's unconventional," Catherine acknowledged, but maintaining distance while remaining in your property is legally sound. The restraining order should be processed by noon tomorrow. After ending the call, Liam checked the perimeter cameras again. No sign of her vehicle yet. He moved methodically through the house, securing windows and setting interior lights to create the impression of normal activity without revealing his exact location. In the master bathroom, he paused momentarily before Ava's cosmetics drawer, now half empty from items she'd taken to Vegas. He felt no impulse to disturb what remained, no vindictive urge to damage her belongings. Such gestures seemed pointlessly theatrical compared to the quiet power of his actual strategy. His phone chimed with a notification from the security system's traffic recognition feature. Vehicle matching license plate CA HDM 742 detected on Maple Avenue. Estimated arrival 4 minutes. Liam took position in the darkened home office with views of both the front entrance and driveway. The tablet displayed all security feeds simultaneously. His breathing remained measured, his posture relaxed but alert. The anticipation he felt wasn't anxiety, but readiness, the calm preparation of someone who had already mapped all possible scenarios and their optimal responses. A sedan pulled into the driveway at 9:42 p.m., its headlights illuminating the front of the house before going dark. Liam watched the security feed as Ava emerged from the passenger side, her movements sharp with tension. A man remained in the driver's seat. Gary, the coworker turned husband, recognizable from company photographs Liam had seen. Ava approached the front door with angry determination, her heels clicking aggressively against the concrete path. When she reached the door, she didn't ring the bell, but immediately began pounding with her fist. "I know you're in there," she shouted, her voice easily picked up by the doorbell camera. "Open this door right now, Liam." He remained silent, watching from the office as she tried her key, discovering he'd had the locks changed that afternoon. "You think changing the locks keeps me out of my own house?" Her voice rose higher. "Open this door, or I swear I'll call the police again." The irony of that threat wasn't lost on Liam, who continued observing without response. On the security feed, he noticed Gary shifting uncomfortably in the car, checking his phone repeatedly. Ava's approach changed, her voice suddenly taking on a pleading quality. "Liam, please, we need to talk about this like adults. It was just a stupid mistake. Vegas wasn't real." When this produced no response, her anger returned, amplified. "Fine. You're going to regret this. I've already told everyone what you did to me, how you controlled me for years." She moved to the living room windows, peering inside, then circling to the side of the house, where she tried another door, finding it equally secured. Her frustration mounted visibly as each attempt failed to produce either entry or response. "I know you can hear me," she shouted toward various windows. "You can't hide in there forever. This house is half mine." When she returned to the front door for another round of pounding, Liam calmly pressed a button on his tablet. Instantly, the lawn irrigation system activated, strategically positioned sprinklers sending arcs of water across the front approach. Ava jumped back with a shriek as water sprayed her designer outfit. "What the? Are you serious? Sprinklers? Real mature, Liam." She tried darting through the water to reach the door again, but retreated as a second zone activated, effectively creating a water barrier around all ground-level entrances. Soaked and furious, Ava finally retreated toward the car, her carefully styled hair now plastered against her face, mascara running in dark streaks down her cheeks. The sprinklers continued their methodical coverage of the property perimeter. "Turn them off!" she screamed toward the house. "This is ridiculous. You're being pathetic." From the driver's seat, Gary finally emerged, remaining a cautious distance from the water. "Ava, come on. This isn't working. Let's go." "No, this is my house too. He can't just lock me out and turn the sprinklers on me." Gary glanced nervously at the neighboring homes, where lights had begun switching on, curious faces appearing at windows. "People are watching. We should leave before someone calls the police." "Let them call," Ava shouted. "I already filed a report about his abuse." Gary's expression shifted, a new wariness entering his features. "You said you were just locked out of accounts. You didn't mention filing police reports about abuse." "It doesn't matter," she snapped. "They'll believe me. I'm his wife." "And mine, apparently," Gary replied, his tone cooling noticeably. "Which is something we need to discuss, by the way. I just got a very concerning call from my bank about joint liability for your credit accounts." Liam continued observing from inside, maintaining his silence, as the dynamic between the pair shifted visibly. The sprinklers created a steady background rhythm, a counterpoint to the increasingly tense conversation. "That's not important right now," Ava insisted. "We need to deal with Liam first." "Actually, it is important," Gary countered, stepping back toward the car. "Especially since you told me your divorce was already finalized." The bank seemed quite surprised to hear I was claiming to be married to someone with active joint accounts with another spouse. Ava's attention divided, her angry glances at the house now interspersed with increasingly desperate looks toward Gary. "I can explain everything. Let's just go somewhere and talk." Gary opened the driver's door. "That's the first sensible thing you've said tonight." After a final, venomous glare at the house, Ava returned to the car, slamming the passenger door with enough force to echo through the neighborhood. The sedan backed out of the driveway, with Gary's movements now stiff with visible tension. As the car disappeared down the street, Liam deactivated the sprinklers. He remained at the window for several minutes, watching the water gradually seep into the lawn. The confrontation had concluded exactly as he had anticipated. Not through engagement, argument, or counterattack, but through the power of boundaries maintained with quiet dignity. He felt no triumph or vindication, only a clear, calm certainty that he had preserved what mattered most, not the marriage, which had proven hollow, but his own self-respect. 3 days after the sprinkler confrontation, Liam returned to his office at Westbrook Financial. The familiar rhythm of professional life offered a welcome structure after the upheaval of the previous week. Colleagues nodded respectfully as he passed, their manner unchanged despite the rumors that had inevitably begun circulating. At his desk, Liam methodically addressed the work that had accumulated during his brief absence. The quarterly forecast models required updates, client portfolios needed rebalancing, and 3 departmental meetings awaited his input. He focused on each task with characteristic precision, finding comfort in the clarity of numbers and projections. "Good to have you back," Ellen said, appearing in his doorway mid-morning. She placed a coffee on his desk, black, no sugar, exactly how he took it. "Roberts approved your risk assessment model, said it was exactly what we needed for the Richardson account." "Thank you," Liam replied, glancing up from his monitor. "It's good to be back." Ellen hesitated briefly. "I heard about what happened, not from you, obviously, but news travels." Liam nodded, neither confirming nor denying. Ellen had always respected professional boundaries, which he appreciated now more than ever. "You should know," she continued, her tone matter-of-fact rather than gossipy, "Gary Peterson resigned yesterday, left quite suddenly. Apparently, there's some issue with the Anderson account finances." Liam's expression remained neutral. "I hadn't heard. Internal audit is reviewing all his work, Something about unauthorized expense approvals and potential client billing discrepancies. Ellen shook her head. Accounting mentioned your wife hasn't been in either. Ex-wife, Liam corrected quietly. The legal separation is being processed. Ellen nodded, understanding the implicit boundaries. Well, the Richardson presentation is at 2 if you're up for it. I'll be there, he assured her, returning to his screen. After she left, Liam allowed himself a moment of reflection. The consequences he'd anticipated were unfolding without any further action on his part. The validation brought no joy, only a sober awareness that justice sometimes arrived on its own timeline. He returned to his work, choosing to focus on rebuilding his professional momentum rather than monitoring the collapse occurring elsewhere in the building. The weekend arrived with unusually clear weather, perfect for the home renovation project Liam had planned. He stood in what had been the master bedroom, now stripped of its previous furnishings, the walls freshly primed for painting. Michael Chen, the interior designer recommended by a colleague, surveyed the space with a professional eye. The southern exposure gives us excellent natural light. I think the slate blue we discussed would work perfectly, modern but calming. Liam nodded, visualizing the transformation. And the built-in shelving for the east wall? The carpenter can start next week. White oak with minimal hardware, clean lines. Michael made notes on his tablet. For the new bed and furnishings, I prepared several options based on our discussions. They moved through the house methodically, room by room. The dining room would become a home office. The guest room would be reimagined as a reading retreat. Each space was being reconfigured, not just in function, but in meaning, no longer defined by a shared past, but by Liam's vision for his future. Most clients in your situation want to erase everything immediately, Michael observed as they reviewed fabric samples. Your approach is more thoughtful, evolving the space rather than burning it down. Liam considered this as he selected a textured navy fabric for the office chair. Erasing everything would give the past too much power. I'm more interested in building something new than in reacting to what happened. The work was therapeutic in its tangible progress. Each decision, paint colors, furniture arrangements, lighting fixtures, represented a small step forward. Unlike the uncertain terrain of emotional recovery, these choices produced visible, measurable results. As they finalized the renovation schedule, Liam's phone buzzed with an email notification from Catherine Winters. The subject line read simply, "Update on financial investigation." He set the phone aside without opening the message. Whatever developments were unfolding in Ava's life, they could wait until after he'd completed the day's rebuilding work. His attention remained focused on the blueprint spread across the kitchen counter, where Michael was indicating the placement of new lighting fixtures. This pendant will anchor the space, Michael explained, creating a focal point that draws the eye upward. Liam nodded his approval, his mind already envisioning the completed room. A space that would reflect not who he had been, but who he was becoming. Pleated home office, adjusting the position of his desk to maximize the natural light. The transformation was remarkable. What had once been a formal dining room seldom used was now a functional workspace bathed in sunlight, with built-in bookshelves and comfortable seating. He placed his laptop on the desk, aligned his reference books on the shelves, and stepped back to appreciate the completed space. The renovation wasn't just about changing the physical environment. It represented a reclamation of his home on his own terms. The doorbell rang, interrupting his moment of satisfaction. Catherine Winters stood on the porch, portfolio in hand, her expression professionally composed. "The office looks excellent," she commented after Liam invited her in. "Much better use of the space." "Thank you for coming in person," he replied, offering her a seat in one of the new leather chairs. I appreciate you handling everything so efficiently. Catherine placed her portfolio on the desk. I wanted to deliver these documents personally. The judge signed off on the final separation agreement this morning. She extracted a set of papers, each flagged with signature tabs. Because of the evidence we presented, particularly the Vegas marriage documentation and financial misconduct records, the judge expedited everything. The divorce can be finalized in 60 days. Liam reviewed the documents carefully, signing where indicated. The process felt surreal, the methodical dissolution of 6 years reduced to a series of signatures. There are some developments you should be aware of, Catherine continued after collecting the signed papers. The hasty Vegas marriage has been annulled. Apparently, Mr. Peterson discovered significant financial liabilities he hadn't been informed about. Liam nodded, but offered no comment. Additionally, the internal audit at your company has escalated to a formal investigation involving the regulatory authorities. I won't go into details, but your documentation was instrumental in establishing the timeline of misappropriation. I never intended that, Liam said quietly. You didn't cause it, Catherine reminded him. You simply protected yourself with evidence of what was actually happening. The consequences are the natural result of their actions. She closed her portfolio. There's one more thing. Ava's attorney has indicated she may seek reconciliation discussions once the misunderstanding is resolved. Liam looked out at his transformed home office, the physical manifestation of his own transformation. There's nothing to reconcile, he said finally. Please inform them that any communication should continue through legal channels only. Catherine nodded with professional approval. I'll convey that message clearly. After she departed, Liam returned to arranging his new office, placing a small potted plant near the window where it would receive afternoon sun. Unlike the past weeks of reactive measures, this action was purely creative, part of building something new rather than responding to something broken. The natural consequences of Ava's choices continued to unfold at their own pace, but Liam's attention was increasingly focused elsewhere. On the future, he was methodically constructing, one deliberate choice at a time. The doorbell rang on a Tuesday afternoon, 6 months after the sprinkler confrontation. Liam glanced at his security app, surprised to see Ava standing on the porch. Her appearance had changed, the designer clothes replaced by simpler attire, her posture less commanding than he remembered. He considered not answering, but curiosity won out. He opened the door without inviting her in, maintaining the threshold as a clear boundary. Liam, she said, her voice adopting the gentle tone she'd once used when trying to persuade him of something. Thank you for seeing me. You look good. What do you need, Ava? His voice was neither cold nor warm, simply direct. Could we talk? Just for a few minutes? She gestured toward the living room visible behind him. I've been doing a lot of thinking. He remained in the doorway. I prefer to keep this brief. Ava's smile faltered slightly. I understand. Things got complicated. But we had 6 years together before all this happened. That has to mean something. When Liam didn't respond, her approach shifted. The legal stuff is getting messy. My attorney says we could resolve everything more efficiently if we just talked directly. Her voice lowered. And honestly, I'm in a difficult position financially since everything. The manipulation was transparent, the strategic vulnerability, the implied promise of easier resolution, the subtle reminder of their history. 6 months earlier, he might have felt obligated to help, to listen, to accommodate. All communication should continue through our attorneys, he said simply. Catherine Winters represents me in all matters related to our separation. Liam, please. Gary left me with nothing after the investigation started. My parents won't even take my calls. I made a mistake, okay? A huge mistake. Her desperation seemed genuine, but its timing, after all other options had failed, revealed its true nature. I'm sorry you're having difficulties, Liam replied, his tone measured, but that doesn't change my position. Our attorneys can handle any necessary communication. He began to close the door, prompting a flash of the old Ava, eyes narrowing, voice hardening. You think you're so much better than me, don't you? Standing there in your perfect little renovated house, acting all superior? Liam paused, considering his response carefully. No, Ava, I don't think I'm better than you. I'm just choosing what's healthiest for me. Goodbye. He closed the door quietly but firmly, the soft click of the latch speaking more powerfully than any angry slam could have. The conference room at Catherine Winter's law firm featured floor-to-ceiling windows with views of the city skyline. Liam sat at the polished table, reviewing the final divorce decree as Catherine explained each section. The judge was particularly impressed with the documentation you provided, she noted, turning to the financial settlement page. Your thoroughness made this remarkably straightforward, despite the opposing counsel's attempts to complicate matters. Liam nodded, scanning the terms that formalized the end of his marriage. The prenuptial agreement had provided the framework, with the evidence of infidelity and financial misconduct removing any room for negotiation. The financial investigation resulted in separate criminal charges? He asked, referencing a notation on page 6. Yes, the SEC and District Attorney's Office are handling those independently. Your testimony wasn't required since the documentation spoke for itself. Catherine adjusted her glasses. The fraud charges relate to corporate malfeasance, not your personal accounts, though they did attempt to implicate you initially. And the house? Solely in your name now, with all equity. The lien attempt was dismissed with prejudice. Catherine indicated another signature line. This final page acknowledges the conclusion of all claims between parties. Liam signed methodically, each signature representing not just a legal formality, but a conscious choice to close this chapter completely. The process felt weightier than he had anticipated, not from lingering attachment, but from recognition of the journey's significance. Once these are filed, there's a 30-day waiting period before the divorce is final, Catherine explained, collecting the signed documents. Given the circumstances, I don't anticipate any further complications. Thank you for your thoroughness, Liam said, meaning it. Her professional competence had transformed a potentially chaotic process into an ordered resolution. Catherine closed her portfolio. If I may speak candidly, Liam, I've handled hundreds of divorces, and rarely have I seen someone navigate this process with your composure. Most clients are consumed by either vindictiveness or despair. Your focus on resolution, rather than retribution, is uncommon. Liam considered this as he stood to leave. It wasn't about winning. It was about maintaining boundaries that should have been established long before. As they shook hands, he realized that this formal conclusion brought neither pain nor triumph, only a quiet sense of completion, like closing a book whose story had reached its natural end. That evening, Liam sat in his reading room, the former guest bedroom now transformed with built-in bookshelves, a comfortable armchair, and warm, adjustable lighting. Outside, rain tapped gently against the windows, creating a soothing background rhythm. His phone chimed with a text message. Ava's name appeared on the screen. I know it's over legally, but for what it's worth, I'm sorry. For everything. Can we at least talk one last time? Liam read the message twice, feeling neither anger nor the pull of obligation that had once been so automatic. Instead, he felt a calm certainty about his boundaries. He forwarded the message to Catherine with a brief note, asking her to remind opposing counsel about the no-contact agreement, then set the phone aside. He turned his attention to the book in his lap, a volume on architectural design he'd been meaning to read for months. The renewed interest in his surroundings, in creating spaces that reflected his values, had been an unexpected gift from this difficult chapter. Ellen had remarked on the change during their lunch meeting earlier that day. "You seem more present now," she'd observed. "More decisive. The quiet guy was always there, but now there's this certainty about you." She was right. The transformation hadn't happened in a single dramatic moment, but through hundreds of small choices, each time he'd chosen dignity over retaliation, boundaries over capitulation, forward movement over bitter dwelling. The most profound change wasn't the rebuilt home or the legal resolution, but the quiet confidence that had replaced his former tendency to accommodate at his own expense. He had discovered that genuine strength resided not in dominating others, but in governing himself with dignity. The rain continued its gentle cadence against the windows as Liam turned the page of his book. The house around him, thoughtfully renovated, peaceful, entirely his own, reflected the internal transformation that had occurred. The silence that had once seemed like absence now felt like presence. Not emptiness, but clarity. Not loneliness, but self-sufficiency. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and opportunities, professional projects, and perhaps eventually new relationships. But tonight, in this moment of quiet reflection, Liam recognized the simple truth that had emerged from all the turmoil. Sometimes the most powerful response isn't what you say, but what you don't say. Sometimes the greatest strength lies not in fighting back, but in standing firm. 1 year after receiving the text that shattered his marriage, Liam stood on the balcony of his mountain retreat, a small cabin he had purchased with his year-end bonus. Below, the valley stretched into the distance, autumn colors painting the landscape in warm hues. The morning air carried a crisp clarity that matched his state of mind. The journey from that devastating midnight message to this moment of peaceful solitude had revealed truths he never expected to discover. True strength, he had learned, wasn't found in the ability to hurt others, but in the capacity to maintain dignity when wronged. The single-word reply, "cool," had marked the beginning of his transformation, not because it was clever or hurtful, but because it represented a choice to respond rather than react. In the face of betrayal, many would have chosen vengeance or collapsed into victimhood. Either path would have granted Ava continued power over his life. Instead, he had discovered the quiet authority of boundaries, the profound difference between punishment and protection. The most surprising lesson came through silence. When false accusations threatened his reputation, his methodical evidence spoke more powerfully than any defensive argument could have. When confrontation arrived at his doorstep, his absence of engagement proved more effective than any counterattack. The sprinklers had washed away manipulation more thoroughly than angry words ever could. He had learned that preparing for crisis isn't paranoia, but self-respect, that documentation isn't suspicion, but wisdom. Most importantly, he discovered that healing doesn't require the other person's acknowledgement or remorse. It requires only your own permission to move forward. Liam watched an eagle soar across the valley, riding currents of air with effortless grace. Like that eagle, he had found elevation not by fighting against the storm, but by using its very energy to rise above it. The path forward remained unmarked, but no longer uncertain. Whatever challenges awaited, he would face them with the same quiet dignity that had transformed crisis into clarity, betrayal into wisdom, and an ending into a beginning.